Welcome to NACIC World Podcast. The objective of the NACIC World Podcast is to uplift, inspire, motivate, and to encourage personal growth and introspection. The human spirit is a flame that can be neglected, ignored, and covered up, but it can also be nurtured, nourished, and fanned to create a mighty fire. NACIC World Podcast, fan the flame of your spirit. Here is your host, RJ.
As we approach this coming Sunday, I thought it would help us to look into the topic of compassion. In this hectic time of the COVID-19 pandemic, it is all too easy to feel that people have lost their connection with one another. Compassion is as vital to life as the air we breathe. For in the absence of compassion, how many benevolent, selfless, and heroic deeds would have happened throughout history? So what is compassion? You know, on page 393 of the Oxford Handbook of Positive Psychology, the second edition, compassion is described as, quote, an emotion experienced when individuals witness another person's suffering through serious troubles which are not self-inflicted and that we can picture ourselves experiencing, close quote. Simply put, compassion is the emotion invoked in us by the suffering of others. It is being with someone who's suffering, hoping that the suffering will diminish or end, and doing something to try to alleviate the suffering. This ability to understand the suffering of other people is an important component that motivates our desire to help. Compassion is not pity, agreement, or waiving of your rights. Compassion by itself opens your heart and nourishes people you care about. Compassion reflects the wisdom that everything is related to everything else, and it naturally draws you into feeling more connected with all things. Research suggests that compassion is a skill that can be learned and strengthened. I think it's time for some music.
NACIC World Podcast, broadcasting all over the world. You are listening to NACIC World Podcast. If you are serious about making money online from home, then visit enterprisesonline.com. enterprisesonline.com.
Having compassion toward others is a gift of connectedness you give yourself and a gift of presence you give others. Compassion involves seeing others as self. No matter how different others are or how different their circumstances are from yours, we all want essentially the same thing from life. We want happiness, satisfaction, and love. We want connectedness, safety, and understanding. When you are struggling to feel compassion for others, struggling to put yourself in their shoes, struggling to understand what they are going through, remember this similarity. Remember that everyone ultimately wants what you want. So compassion involves seeing others as you see yourself. Compassion also does not involve sacrifice or martyrdom at your expense. Don't justify another's behavior at the cost of your feelings or discount your feelings. Compassion gives you a sense of connectedness. Having compassion means opening your heart to others. It also means residing in your heart when interacting with others. This can be especially challenging when compassion is most needed, but it's well worth the effort. When you show others compassion, they get to experience being heard and cared for when most needed. Showing compassion can have a very big impact on yourself as well. People that are naturally kind and compassionate, as well as those that are empathetic to the needs of others, often find that they are happier and more content in life. They experience greater personal satisfaction. They also tend to have a larger social network that is there to help them in times of challenge. Let us take a break.
You are listening to NACIC World Podcast. Are you interested in doing an online tourism business course? Visit tourismbusinessonline.com, tourismbusinessonline.com.
The first step toward having compassion for others is having compassion for yourself. It is the first step toward creating thriving relationships. It is the first step towards moving forward and growing your life. This is because we can never truly give to another if we are empty, if we are tapped out or unnourished. Sure, We can push ourselves to give even then, but the giving won't be genuine. At the same time, giving to others while you are empty makes you feel resentful. This is why it is extremely important to always care for yourself first. The last time you were sick, did you take care of yourself the way you would a sick child? Did you fix your favorite meal, sleep for hours on end, and take a day or two off from work? Or did you instead push yourself through the discomfort and low energy all the time, telling yourself you can't afford the time to be sick? The last time you were sad, did you hug yourself and call a friend? Or did you instead continue with your routine, pushing yourself even harder, telling yourself to get over it? The last time you failed at something, did you look at your accomplishments? Even in the failure, acknowledge your sadness and come up with a practical way to do better next time? Or did you instead berate yourself endlessly, telling yourself that you should have done differently and better? Self-compassion is the ability to be present to your shortcomings and vulnerabilities, your humanness, and still perceive yourself as the precious, lovable human being you are. Practice compassion for yourself because, firstly, you are human, fragile, vulnerable. Secondly, without it, you will not have the strength to achieve your greatest aspirations. Lastly, practice self-compassion for yourself because you can be with and connect with others only to a degree that you can be with and connect with your own humanity. Lack of compassion for oneself and others is a major cause of inner and relationship unhappiness. In terms of personal growth, if you were to just focus on making compassion your highest priority, both for yourself and for others, you would find yourself progressing towards happiness, peace, and joy more rapidly than you can imagine. We move into compassion for ourselves when we know that we have very good reasons for our feelings and behavior, and into compassion for others when we know that others also have very good reasons for their feelings and behavior. Time for some music.